Okay, so let's talk Double Dragon for the NES, which was developed by Technos and released in 1988. I figured since I reviewed Double Dragon 2 The Revenge some weeks ago, I might as well check out the original and see if it's worth playing today. Now, as a kid I never played the arcade version, but did get to play a lot of the Gameboy, Sega Master System and Commodore 64 ports, and so the NES version shouldn't be that much different, right? Well, the story remains the same. The evil Shadow Warrior gang kidnaps Billy Lee's girlfriend Marian, and naturally Billy must take the fight across the city, through an industrial area, a dangerous forest with some caves, and then into the Shadow Warrior's secret lair. Right away, the differences between this version and the others is that Billy's punch and kick attacks are fairly weak at first, and he must level up his attacks by defeating several gang members. This in turn gives him points. Once enough have been earned, Billy gains a heart, and this makes him a little more powerful. Once Billy has 7 hearts, however, the game does get a little easier, so I highly recommend trying to level up as early and as quickly as possible. Now, upon doing some research for this video, I discovered that many people said this game is hard, cruel, and you don't get enough lives, whilst many said it's just not as good as the other versions. So with curiosity getting the better of me, I decided to put their opinions to the test and see if they were indeed correct. Well, the first 2 levels are a doddle, the combat quite straightforward, and you can even knock the first Abobo off the conveyor belt right away. Also, don't feel like killing Chin, the boss of stage 2, then don't. Just simply climb down the ladder when he appears at this point here, and the game says you've beat the level. Level 3 is where things get extremely tough, however with practice I was able to get through the first half quite easily. Now just before you enter the cave you have 2 more Abobos to fight, and I think this is where part of why people say this game is unfair. Now I do agree, at first this part really sucks, but here's the thing, I was able to beat 2 Abobos on my original life bar. Now you're probably thinking I fly kicked them, right? Well, not exactly. I baited them by walking up and down the screen, and with a bit of luck was able to kick them both down in turn. I enter the cave and quickly discover that there are falling stalactites from the ceiling, and you have to try to avoid them. Now, this was easier said than done because the patterns are entirely random and they would rinse my health over and over. So again, it's all about getting lucky and getting a good stalactite pattern where you don't get hit as much. Technos then decided to add in some platforming sections, and therefore this is why I said to level up as soon as possible, because you're going to need to fly kick on these lifts here and make it to the other side. Now if you fall to the ground you respawn at the stalactite part and have to do it all over again. Now I take great issue with this part because sometimes the flying kick just wouldn't work and I would fall down time and time again, and sometimes the game would then defy the law of physics because Billy would fall through solid objects, if you can believe that, and lose a life. I actually found this to be one of the most frustrating issues I've had with the game, all because the fly kick just decided not to work despite me knowing how to do it and pulling it off time and time again. Now I do understand, and giving Technos the benefit of the doubt, that I am on a small platform, and so I suppose in real life it would be very difficult. Then I had to fight more Shadow Gang warriors, avoid more rolling rocks and stalactites. I mean, am I playing Double Dragon or Indiana Jones? Because I'm really confused here. Then you must fight 2 more Abobos who look like they've had a lot of green tea. Once this is done, there's a little bit more climbing and fighting to find the Shadow Warrior's secret lair. Okay, tough but manageable. Stage 4 however is a real pain in the keister because you have these random stone pillars that come out of the wall at the start of the stage and they spam your health. Also make it here, and there's 2 more Abobos, but you don't have to fight them and can just climb up here, deal with the enemies and then do some more jumping onto lifts whilst avoiding random Williamses. This game only gives you 3 lives and no continues, and you're expected to do everything within those parameters. Luckily however I had the power of Game Genie on my side and inputted the 9 code trick, and was actually able to see the final stages of the game and the boss rush and everything. Now despite me using this code several times to get the footage I needed for this video, I actually had one playthrough where I inputted the code and I managed to get to stage 4 and I only lost 1 life in total. So technically I nearly beat the game with the original set of lives the game expects you to complete it in. Now here comes the kicker. A rush of bosses and enemies need to be taken down to trigger Willy. I beat 2 Abobos, 2 Chins, 2 Linders, 2 Ropers, and then I had to face Willy. And so, despite my good fortune in having actually got to the Shadow Warrior's lair and only losing 1 life, unfortunately things took a turn for the worst, as the Game Genie codes had to kick in because the boss rush was just a little bit too difficult for me to manage, and then I had to face Willy himself, who, despite looking like Bennett from Commando, wields a huge machine gun, and despite everything I did, my best efforts, I just couldn't beat him and found him extremely tough. I do consider, however, just making it this far a real achievement, so I do think it can be done on just 3 lives. Having played the game, do I agree with the reviewers? Well, Double Dragon certainly is challenging, but it's one of those games that back in the day you just had to knuckle down and practice. I will say that a few more lives and continues would have helped, so if you have an NES, get the Game Genie and input some extra lives. At the very least it will allow you to practice the game and develop some sound strategies. I also feel that the silly platforming elements just spoil the game and can lead to some cheap and nasty deaths. Luckily this game is quite short and so it won't take you long to get back to where you were anyway. This game also features a 2-player mode, sort of, however anyone expecting 2-player co-op will be disappointed as both players take it in turns as Billy Lee. It's really bizarre how it works, as it's kind of a race to get to the end, with both players continuing from the last point that they died from. There's also a one-on-one fighting mode where you can choose to play as one of the characters from the game and battle another player or the computer. I did find this mode fairly sluggish, unfair, as the CPU would always get the better of me. The graphics are not as polished as other versions of Double Dragon due to the NES having quite a limited colour palette, and so many of the characters from the arcade had to be redesigned and animated slightly differently to run on the 8-bit system. Now if I'm honest, I didn't really like the arcade look, I just felt it looked a little bit too cartoony. I do prefer the NES and Game Boy graphics myself because they do look a little bit more gritty and realistic. I have to admit that I don't even like the look of the Sega Master System, which is a stripped down arcade port despite the gameplay being really good. The music on this version is superb and each stage has a different track, and my favourite has to be the Forest and Shadow Warrior layer tunes. The sound effects are good too, and I enjoy the sounds of the blades slicing through enemies and the punching and kicking. So can I recommend playing this game today? Well, for those of you who want to give it a try, I do recommend emulating it first, as more than likely you'll be wanting to use save states which will help climatise you to the game. If you're an NES purist, however, pick it up, but due to its limited lives, 3 in total and no continues, it may take you a while to master. Now some of you may find this game frustrating for the issues I've mentioned, but being forewarned is forearmed. The platforming sections are unfair and nasty, but they can be practiced, and the more you do, the better you will get at it, and the less you will fail these tricky sections. Thank you for watching my review, and if you have enjoyed it, please smash that like button and subscribe to my channel, as you'll really be helping my channel to grow, and you'll be instantly notified every time I upload a new video. Until next time, take care.